Hello everybody and welcome back for another 1v1 replay in Edain. This time, I'd like to take a much more focused look at how I play a particular faction. And that faction is Imladris. So, why Imladris? Well, a lot of people say it's underpowered, and I actually myself find it very difficult to play them, especially in 1v1. And this is an example of a game I played quite a few days ago of when I was really searching on some new tactics to try and make Imladris work for me. And what I settled on was combining a very strong eco start, as you see here, going for 2 early eco buildings, and also going for this outside farm, grabbing these 2 free outside farms with my starter battalion. So going for an extremely strong eco, using error start on this building. And the reason I wanted to go for such a strong eco start was because the units are so expensive, and it's also difficult to get heroes out when your units are that expensive. So it is quite different from how I play other factions. I do like to go for barrack starts in most cases, and actually I've changed my tactics even still since this video on Imladris, and I do like to go for an earlier barrack start than I do in this replay. However, this is a good example of how you can quite easily play Imladris reasonably well. Now here you see, this is one of the great advantages of Imladris troops, their starter units. They can actually creep wargs. Now there's almost no other starter units in other factions that can creep wargs as well as this as these Rivendell swordsmen. And bearing in mind, this is without a scout hero. Now Gildor's pretty good at creeping wargs as well, and trolls. However, I wanted to focus mainly on eco. So here you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th eco building is coming up, and this is extremely early for 6 eco buildings. Now let's have a quick look at my opponent, Deathless. He's gone for Erebor, he's gone for a barrack starts, so he's pumping out his units. But let's have a look at his eco buildings. He's got none here, he's got one there. He's actually missed this one, which is a bit of a mistake on Fords of Horizon 2. You really want to go for this outside farm because there's no creeps there protecting it, so it's just a nice cheap farm. He's got another there, so he's got 2 farms to my, oh, another one's up, 7. And I'm going to be getting more here. So really I'm focusing so much on early eco. However, in the meantime, he has creeped his troll, and so it looks like he's going to be pushing through the middle. Whereas I'm going to be focusing mainly on this flank in the early game, and then once I build my barracks, as I am now, I'm going to start pushing units out here to try and gain this side of the map. So, some more nice juicy money, another farm, and as you see, I'm actually upgrading this forge here, and I'm going to be using Aristar on this forge from now on. And that is a nice little tip for Imladris. There you go, Aristar used, is that you can upgrade one farm with very high resources, because the higher resources it produces, the more benefit Aristar has, because once again it's a percentage increase. So in the meantime, and here's a good example to watch here how I creep these wargs with these soldiers. It's not good enough to just run in to the 2 wargs, because you can actually very easily lose them. You need to really single them out, and it's all about timing really. The one warg will be on one side of the den and the other on the other, and you can actually single them out and they'll chase your unit, and I'll probably show you that in a how to Edain video. Now I have lost quite a lot of units nonetheless, even though I managed to single them out, and there's only 3 units in this battalion. However, it has managed to get to level 2 thanks to the creeping of the wildmen and the wargs, and therefore it will self regenerate, so it's actually reasonably safe. In the meantime, Deathless has stolen my troll, so once again people stealing my trolls. It's not very nice, but they do it all the time. Now here you see I don't destroy it quite in enough time to make sure that this warg doesn't come out. So the warg does come out, and as you see here, it's very close, and yes, it's killed a second of my units in that battalion, so I've only got 2 now. However, my heal is recharged and I'm attacking. So that is something that I missed that I would like to mention, is that when you creep in this warg over here, the first warg that you creep, it is quite important to get a heal instead of the horn, because you are very likely to lose 1 unit in the battalion, and heal replaces 1 unit. So really that's an excellent power for Imladris in general. Here you see already double production, plus 50%. You add Aristar on, that's plus 100%. So this is like 2 farms when Aristar is on there. That's quite a big boost. Now you see I have got quite a lot of resources here, and I'm starting to spam out some more units. So really in this game I've got enough resources to start spamming out the Imladris swords. So in the meantime, I've started to creep over here to try and gain this side of the map. And these units have just seen Deathless army here, and he's got quite a few units, and that's an advantage of going for the early barracks, is that you can spam out a lot more units than your opponent does if he's gone for eco. And the reason for that is simply because of the resource production times on all the units. If you haven't got a barracks up, you're not spending time producing them, and therefore you just can't spam nearly as many in the early game. So here's a good example of something that I like to do as Imladris, and that is not split armies. So, and actually in this matchup against Erebor, it's not such a big deal because Erebor is so slow. So actually, once again, it's me thinking about how to play Imladris, and here you can really see my thought process and how I've actually changed since this match, because I do split a lot more if it's possible. You really don't want to split Imladris units if you're playing against fast units from the enemy, such as Ered Lewin or, say, the Wolves of Angmar, because if you split your units and they get surrounded by, say, the Wolves of Angmar, and the Wolves actually kill some of your units, that's such a huge setback for you as Imladris. Now, here you see I've made a well on the wall, and this really is a big tip of mine for you, if you like to play Imladris and you'd like to get better at playing Imladris, is this wall hub, in my opinion, is essential for Imladris. Just because it heals so quickly, it regens units so quickly. Here you see another unit being regened. And really, it just helps you keep your units alive. And I've said it so many times when I'm talking about Imladris, keeping your units alive is so important because they're so expensive. So you can actually have a fight, you can earn some power points, you can kill some units, but if you get to the point where you're taking too much damage, you can just retreat to this wall hub and heal up extremely quickly. Then you can extremely quickly get back into the fight again. Here you see, I was thinking about attacking his outpost because he's gone for an extremely early outpost here, but because of these ravens, which reduce your armor, I've actually decided to avoid the fight for now, and because he's moved back to his outpost, I've decided to go over here, and he's not going to reach it in time before I destroy this. Now the ravens are down now, so now I'm thinking, okay, the ravens are down, and I can start to attack his outpost. Here you see, it's not even fully built yet. He has gone for a second outpost, Dale outpost, and he's got quite a few upgrades on it, so it is producing him a lot of resources. Now here you see already I've gone for some heavy armor. That's thanks to upgrading this forge very quickly, and also my eco start allowing me to afford this on my units so early in the game. And once again, it's all part of the plan of keeping my units alive, and that eco start really helps me to do so. Now here you see early outposts, in my opinion, are not good. However, they become good if you don't effectively counter them. And what I'm trying to do here is effectively counter it. Because if I let it stay, and I let it produce the resources that it produces until the point where it's paid for itself and it starts to produce a profit, then it's really bad for me. Here you see I'm not actually attacking it optimally because I've got some units not doing anything. Really, I should bring these round to the sides. Nevertheless, it will be destroyed, and he did get the watchtower up, as you see there, which was quite a bit of a mistake from him, because really it didn't do a lot, and he just wasted that 400 resources. Now here you see upgraded Imladris troops. They're really not going to die against these unupgraded units, apart from maybe the Outstowers could do some damage, but as you see, I've sent quite a few units after them to kill them, and the Breeze of Manwë will finish them off, and it's knocked all these down, so they're not attacking, but I'm attacking them. So the Breeze of Manwë is very good when you're fighting two armies, both to keep your units alive and to inflict damage. Now here you see they just really clear up, and this is another thing about Imladris which is so important, is going for the Elven Wood. It gives plus 25% armour. If you combine that with Standfast, which also produces 25% armour, then you've got plus 50% armour, and that is huge as Imladris, because as I've said many times before, it's a percentage increase, and they've got great base stats, so the great base stats of armour plus 50% is really quite huge for Imladris, and they're not very likely to die. Now you see here I've gone for a Sables. This is another reason why the eco start is quite good, because I can afford not only to spam units but also to spam cavalry, which if I hadn't gone for such a heavy eco start, or I hadn't got as many outside farms as I could, I wouldn't really be able to afford to do this. Now in the meantime, something I would like to say is that they cost 90 command points, so that's more than other units. Other units in the game, like for example Gondor Swordsmen or Erebor units, they only cost 60 command points, as you see here. The Extras cost 90 because they're archers, but they only cost 60. So I'm actually, with Imladris, you have to focus a little bit more on getting pantry upgrades a lot earlier than other factions. And as you see, I've already got one here, and a second coming here. Now one of the advantages for that is Eristar speeds up the production of, you see this production time here on Pantry, it does take quite a bit, but if you use Eristar, that speeds up by 50%. So that's quite nice. So you can reasonably quickly get some pantry upgrades and continue the spam. Here you see I'm starting to produce some Rivendell Lancers, and really that's start to gain map control. Here you see a little bit of army splitting, not a huge amount, but just army splitting for the pikes to kill the wargs while I grab this farm, and now I'm moving over to attack. So here you see this is a prime example of not army splitting with Imladris. It's such a big clump. And really, the reason for that is if I ever get surprised from a surprise attack, I will probably win it because I've got so many units in one place. Whereas if my units were isolated, they could easily die to an overwhelming force. So once again, some more Lancers coming out, and really that's to grab and maintain map control. Now, Deathless hasn't pushed on the flanks, as I mentioned before, and really I think he should have been doing so in this position. So this area of the map, which I gained very early on, has really been untouched from Deathless, and I've in the meantime managed to secure the upper side of the map as well, whereas he's been focusing mainly on outposts, which hasn't worked out well for him simply because I countered them reasonably well. Here you go, the third Dale of the match already coming up. However, because I've got these outside farms and this strong inside economy, I've already got enough money to purchase forged blades, and I'm going to be grabbing this farm here as well. And in the meantime, I'm going to be attacking, and actually I thought he had a farm here, but as you see, I've now realised that it's actually a creep, so I think, oh, that's nice, I'll grab some creep money while I'm here. And so I'm going to creep this with the cavalry and then harass his farm here. So really, Deathless has gone for the option of pushing through the middle, which, especially on this map Fords of Eisen, a lot of games are one player will go and push through the middle and go for outposts, whereas the other will go for the flanks. Now, some games, both players want to do the same thing. Both players either want to go for the flanks or both players either want to go for the outposts. But I like to go for the flanks, and a lot of players that I play against like to go through the middle. So it's quite nice for me to think, actually, I'm not too bothered that you've got the middle because I'm just going to focus on the outside farms. Now, as you see there, he came in with all those units, and they are actually buffed. And because he's got so many, I might probably win with this amount of units, but once again with Imladris, I really don't like to be too aggressive. Now, a side advantage of me not attacking him there is that he moved to harass this farm, and that's given me a perfect opportunity to move in while he's not protecting his outpost and kill it. You see, I used the Elven Wood to increase my armour. I've actually used a speed buff, which also gives you plus 25% damage, and this should be able to take down the farm, the outpost. Look how much damage Imladris does to this outpost, and that's even without optimal placement of my units again. And it's quite a nice clump there though, and you see very quickly it goes down. That's quite a huge loss for him. So he decided to go through the middle, but I've also taken the middle as well now, so really he's looking in quite a bad shape. However, he has got quite a lot of units. Now I start running away, but actually I realise it's a mistake to run away because actually I do have an overwhelming force. So whilst I like to play defensively with Imladris, if you can be offensive, you should always take the opportunity to do so. I also like waiting for my powers to recharge because using combination of powers with Imladris is so effective because they all work very nicely together. So here you see, incoming with the cav as well. I've got enough power points to get the hobbits, and here you see this is a great example of how using the powers in combination works so well. That's unit powers and PowerPoint powers. So here you see they've used this, and now here comes the Breeze of Manwë, and just watch all of his units melt. Seconds. That took literally seconds for all those units to be destroyed. So that is the power of Imladris. Once you build up, once you secure here, I didn't actually realise Nori was there, and he's actually going to go and hit Gildor a few times in the face with his dagger or whatever it is. I realise he's there. The hobbits do a lot of damage, and he dies. So there you go. That is it, really. Now I've got the outpost. I could go and destroy Dale, and actually that was my next plan. But that is it. That is one example of how you can play Imladris well. So just to summarise again, because really it is GG at this point. Deathless has none of the map, and he's got none of the flanks, and he's got none of the middle, thanks to me destroying it. Just to recap what I really tried to do in this match, I went for a very, very strong eco start, so that I could spam the expensive units and upgrade them very quickly. I then used those units to grab, and there you go, Deathless gave the GG. I used those units to grab the flanks and get a lot of money from the flanks, and then once I built up my army, I'd got a lot of expensive units. I'd upgrade them with heavy armour and forged blades. I'd got out some cavalry. I'd got enough power points to fight the army. So that really, I was never fighting him when I knew I was going to lose. I was only ever fighting him when I knew I was going to win. That is so important as Imladris, and with any faction really. So, that's it. That's how I like to play Imladris. I like to build up an overwhelming force and push through very specific targets. And as you saw then, I was kind of dancing around him a little bit. I knew that he had both the outposts there. I could have gone in and tried to destroy them, however I didn't want to lose too many units. So I waited until all my army was upgraded, I had plenty of power points, and then in one fell swoop, I just attacked and destroyed his outpost, and then attacked and destroyed his army. And really that is the power of Imladris. They're not so great in tiny little clumps of units like, say, a Mordor is good at or a Gondor is good at splitting armies and sending them zipping all over the map to attack stuff. Because if you lose them, it's not a big deal. If you lose Imladris units, it's a huge deal. So that's my recommendation for Imladris. Stay in one clump, don't split too much, and really go for very specific targets like outposts or clumps of armies that you know you can win against. I will be talking a lot more about Imladris because it's one of the most interesting factions for me to play, and one of the most difficult and challenging factions to play, in my opinion. However, I do think people sometimes jump the gun by saying they're completely underpowered before thinking a lot about really how you can play them effectively. I have got a very nice game of Imladris versus Mordor, and it's against Dimitri, who's playing Mordor, and I'll show you how I've changed my strategy slightly to combat something that he was doing against me, which is using trolls, which didn't quite work out for me with the strategy I used in this game. So I've changed my strategy and I've used something else. Anyway, I'm talking way too much. All those videos are in the future. I will be uploading a video of Dimitri beating me, as I promised, and which he very often does beat me. So I hope you're looking forward to that. I'll be uploading more in the future. Thank you for watching, and goodbye from me.